You might expect the names of former commanders-in-chief to come up in a presidential debate. But in the second meeting of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, they reached back, far back, about 150 years, clashing over a reference to President Abraham Lincoln. Now, there's no way to ask Honest Abe what he thinks of the current presidential campaign season, but we can still get somewhat of a feeling. Jacob Kittilstad went to a school in Watertown where Lincoln still lives.
So this afternoon, we are going to have a special visitor who is going to look like Abraham Lincoln.
Mrs. Euler's second grade class has definitely heard his name.
Raise your hand if you can tell me, who do you think our school is named after? Mason? Abraham Lincoln, you're right.
In fact, his statue's installed on the opposite side of their wall. There's even a few Lincoln busts in the front hallway. But the kids will be quick to tell you what's wrong with this picture. Typically, the president did not wear a knit hat with their panda mascot.
He wears a big, tall hat that he kept very important papers in him.
Well, he keeps notes in his hat so he doesn't lose them.
He was a tall man. He always wore a bow tie and shiny shoes.
You might even think that Ryan, Clara, and Nadia and their other second grade classmates were talking about this man.
They're usually a little bit surprised when I walk in. Usually you'll hear a few gasps and such.
Meet President Abraham Lincoln, as portrayed by Kevin J. Wood of Oak Park, Illinois.
Ma'am?
Hi.
President Lincoln gives presentations pretty much daily.
Now, what year is it? 2016, why?
And as you can see, it's serious, first-person history.
Oh, and for this, I'll just read from the end of my speech.
Still adaptable. Take, for example, the Gettysburg Address.
The first line, which is the most familiar line, which is, of course, 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation.
As an educator, now Mr. President can do it in Spanish,
Hace 4 veintenas, más 7 años.
French,
87 ans se sont écoulés.
and even German.
Vor 87 Jahren brachten unsere Väter auf diesem Kontinent hervor eine neue Nation.
But maybe his most useful translation is to kid level.
77 years ago. That's just a fancy way of saying 87 years ago. I do state very clearly at the beginning of Q&A that I can only answer questions from my time period. The last date I recall is April the 14th, 1865. So anything after that, anything having to do with your current election, I'm sorry, I really can't comment on directly.
This question involves WikiLeaks' release of purported excerpts.
So, unfortunately, there's no way to know what Lincoln would think of this exchange in the latest debate, when Hillary Clinton was asked about having both public and private political personas.
That was something I said about Abraham Lincoln after having seen the wonderful Steven Spielberg movie called Lincoln. It was a master class watching President Lincoln get the Congress to approve the 13th Amendment.
She lied. Now she's blaming the lie on the late, great Abraham Lincoln. That's one that I haven't.
This year, both sides of the presidential campaign have painted their opponent as untrustworthy. As far as the nicknames they've given each other, none come close to Lincoln's.
Honest Abe.
Yeah? What do you think that means, to be honest? What do you think that meant?
To not lie.
It means if you tell the truth that you did something or you admit something that you did.
Because he's like honest, and then he doesn't like steal anything and just doesn't tell it. But he just like tells everybody what he did. And he's just so honest.
The same, that's a good word, the same. If two students are an equal height, that means that they're the same height.
And although this Lincoln can't be 100% honest by virtue that he is a recreation, he's still a well-read historian focused on the man's life and character.
Back in 1809 when I was born, now you see right away not very many stars on that flag.
And he does say this on Lincoln's feeling towards truthfulness. He wrote, "If you can't be an honest lawyer, resolve to be honest without being a lawyer."
Thank you. 1, 2, 3.
That could be applied to politicians as well.
And I believe that even a small child obviously understands pretty early on what honesty is. Yeah, stand tall. Because of the temptation we all have as human beings to be dishonest. Imagine that, 7 years old, not quite 8, and I'm already chopping down trees.
And during those tough talks about slavery, war, and death, honesty is one takeaway the kids really do recognize, even in the context of our current election.
A president would need to be honest, because what if he was joking about the rules?
So then people can trust him and know his laws and be like kind to him.
Because if he didn't, then maybe people wouldn't follow the rules and the laws.
That's the basic lesson I try to leave with the children, is to treat other people as the same way that you would wish to be treated, and I believe that's a lesson for all time.